Welcome to the last Saturday of the election-based apocalypse, my family out there. I'm sure everyone's having a non-stressful, not at all anxiety-inducing, no nihilism built up, completely precedented. This has all happened before, not at all making you want to eat a third cheesecake this week. Kind of week. How are y'all doing out there? Everything's fine. You're not fearing democracy crumbling before our eyes, not worrying about a military. I apologize. We're all panicking right now and everything sucks. I'm literally making my second cheesecake of the week today.
Like, sometimes hyperbole has a canceling effect. So we'll often, every election people will say something like, this is the most important election of our lifetimes.
I
And
think
all of a sudden, now we're at the point where I genuinely believe, like, I'm convinced we've never been in a place like this. Things have never been quite this insane or dangerous. This is the most important election in our lifetimes. That's exactly how I feel.
I feel like you should just, like, every Biden commercial they should hire to say, this is the most important election. Like, I can't quite.
I would do it.
I have to quickly interrupt. Mom has entered the chat. Like, anytime she pops into chat, I just have to enter. Anyways, I think back to any time we've said this is the most important election of our lifetime. Like, we said that about Obama versus Romney. And I'm like, we blew our load on that, didn't we? Like, really, Obama, Romney. And like, I say that, and Romney sucked, but like, in that classical way that Republicans suck. But like, that was not the most important election of our lifetime.
I remember thinking about Romney. Everybody was talking about how his Mormonism was off limits. Like, you can talk about his policies and you can talk about his philosophies, but you can't, don't bring up his religion. And I always thought, this is crazy. People's core religious beliefs inform how they feel about the world, how they vote, how they act, their attitudes toward other people. And Mormonism, it's not quite Scientology, but on the batshittery meter, it's probably an 8.5. And so this idea that they gave, him a pass without saying, hang on just a second, the guy with the angels and the golden plates, he could translate using the magic rod that he put in the hat. And no one did that. I thought it was a wasted opportunity. But now here we are, and Romney looks sane, relatively speaking.
Like, I think people get, like, however it happened, Mormonism gets a pass as being as sane as the other, or here's the thing, it gets a pass as being as sane as the other versions of Christianity. And we just take those as being, quote, sane religion, because we're looking at those as through the lens of those are the things that we've culturally accepted as, we take those as the norm. If we looked at those through the lens of someone who's never experienced religion, they would be as crazy as Scientology. Or it's Mormonism itself, specifically Mormonism, would be as crazy as Scientology, I think. Yeah. Like, I think it would be up there. It's that far out.
So here we are looking to I just read a terrifying article in Rolling Stone. They were talking about,
I love terrifying articles. Just
what's happening, what might happen on Tuesday. And when, again, it sounds like hyperbole. Trump is going to steal the election.
Oh, no, it's not. I've been saying this for a long time. Like, the big question is, and I've asked this before, and people are like, don't worry, there are things, but it's like, it's of all, like, I disagree with Bill Maher on a lot. Like, I find him to be kind of a contentious little shit. But one thing he's been saying for years now, talking about this election, is the person who wins needs a plan to get him out of the White House.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, the Rolling Stone article was talking about, a lot of the mail-in ballots are leaning Biden. So if Kavanaugh has already said that he's, we'd like to sort of bring everything back toward the actual election day, which would then negate a lot of those Biden votes that arrive after Tuesday. So what happens if, let's say, for just a microsecond, Trump is on top, he goes and declares victory. Hey, I'm the winner. And he's already then primed his people for a conspiracy and a coup. So if that is then reversed, he says, no, I was the winner. Then if he's able to obfuscate things in the electoral process or the voting process or whatever. Then it ends up toward a stacked Supreme Court. I mean, it's just one thing after the other. I genuinely fear the next 60 days. Somebody else said something interesting too, and I'd be interested in your take on it. Let's say he acknowledges the defeat. Let's say that something happens and he's inhabited by aliens, and they say,
let's
okay,
pretend everything goes well.
Okay, I respect the democratic process. I congratulate the victor.
I don't know how many drugs I'll do just to convince myself that something good happened. So.
I congratulate the winner, and I, for the good of the country, I will concede, and I promise a peaceful transition.
I always beg people, just find your polling place. Just.
What if he takes 8 weeks, and that 8 weeks is just a fuck you to the country? So we're talking about a mass of executive orders of completely screwing I mean, this is just a vindictive tantrum from the Oval Office. So this lame duck period becomes a fuck you to the country for doing him wrong. I absolutely see that happening.
You know, Stephen Miller and company are going to be pushing him to do more and more reckless executive orders as they go. Like they're like, we don't know how much time we have left, but we know that eventually, like they have until basically January 20th at January. I was about to say January 20th, which I know was not the word. They have basically you're like I'm keeping track of every last verbal stutter. There's going to be a fee at the end, a 5-cent nickel jar for everyone. They have until January 20th, when no matter what, if there's still contention over who won, Nancy Pelosi will be put in as I believe President pro tem. I think if someone knows better than me in the comments, please please clarify. But
somebody in the chat posted a link, yourfuckingpollingplace.com, and I had to pull it up here because it's a real site. It's a real site. Hold on, hold please. I got to put in my home address and see how accurate this is here.
That makes me happy.
My fucking polling. Oh, look. Yeah, it pops right up with the hours and everything. Well, and then it has a little like digital sticker that I guess you could print and put on your lapel, and it says, I fucking voted. That's my kind of website. That's my kind of website.
It's one of the nice things this year, and I don't think this came with my previous mail-in ballots, at least in California. It came with an I voted sticker.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it's at least like I said in California. Did you do a mail-in ballot as well?
No. I'm going in person on Tuesday. The polling place is real close to my house. It's a church. It's always fun.
You won't. So, I'm sure you won't burn up on site. Like
the garlic necklace is always good. It's always
like maybe as you're walking out, you'll feel like a little singe. But
well, here in Oklahoma, it's been weird. Like Stephen Hassan has that great book called The Cult of Trump. And, again, it sounds like hyperbole when you say cult, but there is a cult allegiance. Here in Oklahoma, right down the road about 3 miles, there's this, it's like an outdoor gift shop. It's like a big tent, and it's nothing but flags. Trump, 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 Trump. There's one that says, don't tread on me. There's another white flag that has an AR-15 rifle on it, and they're all flapping in the breeze as you go by. And I was driving down the 71st a couple of days ago. There was a guy with a sticker on the back of his truck, and it said Sons of Trump. There was another vehicle, and it had 4 flags, an American flag and 3 Trump flags. And they were all positioned around the bed of a pickup truck as he was driving west. And, there's a religious allegiance. And I really do think that a lot of this ties into a conditioning of people by their religions. And what I mean by that is they are primed for authoritarianism. They're already in a mindset where if some savior figure comes along, they then rally behind them as the flock, right? So if they genuinely bought this wild notion that God had appointed Donald Trump and he was the chosen one, flaws and all, then they can turn off the reasoning and moral centers of their brain because now God has commanded them to fall in lockstep. And I think in a lot of cases, their religions have primed them for authoritarianism.
That is a horrifying and probably true thought for this. And it's strange watching people who had who had what we thought was a moral center coming from the religion, right? Kind of slowly move from, evangelical Christian, and these are things that we want from our politics based on this moral center, move towards this is what we want based on the fact that we have that we have a religious fervor that influences how we experience politics. It's been very odd to watch that shift, but kind of natural at the same time too.
I wrote in my new book, Confessions of a Former Fox News Christian, available
If you
now
want
on
to wave it in
Amazon.
front of the screen
Yeah,
again,
I
we
could
can
do that. Yeah.
plug.
But I wrote about, and there is a tendency, a trend of conservatives, political conservatives, not just in the United States, but worldwide. And they tend to gravitate more toward in-group symbols. And this is easily represented in things like the American flag. What happens when Donald Trump, the cad, the clown, the corrupt, the predator, right? What happens when he wraps himself in the flag? There's a culture of people where all they see is the flag. It's an amazing weaponization of patriotism, because now we've seen him hug like physically on stage. He went up and he hugged the flea, wrapped his arms.
I think he's assaulting that flag. He's getting up there and like dry humping that thing. He's trying to get it wetter than Ben Shapiro's wife's pussy. I'm just saying.
No comment. I can't.
Had to get. Look, I need to get in my Ben Shapiro's wife's pussies joke at least once a live stream. If I don't, it's a very sad day. So.
Does his popularity, like, I look at the guy and I'm like, even if I was a political conservative, he is such a smarmy, irritating person.
Yeah.
Where does his immense popularity come from?
It's like, the other thing is, here's what I don't get. Like, I would feel like I would be talked down to by Ben Shapiro if I was a conservative, because his only skill is in asking a series of questions very quickly and not getting answers from them. He never, like, he'll ask his opponent a bunch of questions and pretend that his opponent doesn't have answers without actually getting to the bottom of it. Like, it's just see, they didn't have answers. And I'm like I would feel insulted if that was like, it's like I like skeptics. Like, I like people like you, and I like people like all the, my people that I go to in skepticism, because they're like, I want to know something. I'm going to ask questions and then go find out what the answers are, not ask questions and pretend there aren't answers.
Yeah.
But
it's like every time I see a clip, I look for a redeeming quality. And I've also been watching the daily self-immolation of Dave Rubin.
Oh
right?
My God.
And I used to be like one of those guys where I'm like, I can hang out with Dave. I mean, I'd sit across the table and have a conversation with him. Hell, I'd go on his.
I have mutual friends with them. Like, people used to say nice things about him in the skeptic movement, and now he's like the easiest target to dunk on.
He is one of those guys who apparently he's drank the Kool-Aid. And he says the most bizarre, like, credibility killing things. And so again, I'd have a conversation with him, provided that we were given the caveat that it aired unedited, right? Because I think he needs to be challenged on a great many things.
Yeah.
And I'm all about conversations, et cetera. But there are, and the popularity of these figures, and the way he speaks in an almost religious allegiance, that deferential, let Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, Fox and Friends, Lou Dobbs type of adoration. It reveals to you that they have made an emotional connection, or maybe it's about just power, or maybe both.
But somewhere, I think it lies somewhere between. Like, I saw an interview with I forget her name, one of the girls on the Young Turks, because Dave Rubin used to be on the Young Turks, and there was an interview with her, and she was talking about why, it was her speculation, obviously, on what caused Rubin's flip. And, like, part of what they enjoy over at the Young Turks is the editorial freedom to do what they want. And when he wanted more money to work there. And so, of course, when he left, it didn't seem to be about, at least when he presented it to his bosses there, it didn't seem to be about editorial, freedom to cover stories from a Republican point of view. It seemed to be that he wanted more cash. But, that at least, who knows what the truth was there. But then all of a sudden he leaves, and it's like, let's find a way to grift, because that's what they all do. Like, and it's
to see, though, that Dave Rubin, like, he's like he's gay. So I think, well, great. What political ideology / party / whatever is not representing the non-heterosexual in this country? I mean, I think, how can you align with this sort of Puritan Republican institution that
Do
has sort of dehumanized the non-heterosexual and be a non-heterosexual? I don't know
did
how he
you
reconciles that.
Did you see? Now this is kind of incredible. Did you see when Dave Rubin had Ben Shapiro on his show, and he asked Ben Shapiro straight to his face, would you bake a gay wedding cake? Would you bake a wedding cake for me?" And
Okay.
he's like, "No." And then he asked him follow up, "Would you come to like an anniversary party for me?" And Ben Shapiro is like sitting there going, "I'd have to think about." And it's like, it's like it's painful watching this guy being such a dick to someone that he allegedly calls a friend, and he's just saying, "Yeah, I just think you're a piece of shit sinner." Like, it's this whole hate the sin, love the sinner thing. It does not work out in real life, because you end up sitting there saying, "I think you're dirty, dirty man." Like,
Yeah.
that's basically what what it ends up coming down to
My
in real life.
my mother is 83 and she is hardcore Trumper. Rush Limbaugh, Fox News. She posted like a QAnon type conspiracy thing the other. I mean, just wild, wild. And the only thing perhaps more controversial for me being her son being an atheist might be me being a political liberal or a humanist. She hates the word
Oh,
humanist. And
someone hate the word humanist.
yeah, I mean, and a lot of that is, I look at her and I think they're Puritan, like they could be Puritans. As we were raised, there was never a beer in the fridge. No one swore. The clothing, like my sister's clothing, was monitored, with precision, how much skin they could show, and
Oh,
temptation and all that. And we were just as straight laced and conservative, I think, as you could be. And there was a real, they had that weird attitude about sex. It's that sort of I don't know. Sex is an awful, evil, 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 dirty, dirty thing, and you should only do it with the
when you're
person you're going to marry and live the rest of your life with. It was
there was
that message.
there was a great quote. I think it was from of all people, political commentator Paul Begala. "Sex is evil and dirty, and it's reserved for marriage."
And it's reserved, and that's what it was. And it was
Yeah,
always, there's this weird thing. So now I look at this guy, and they love Trump. And I'm like, what the
it's
payoff to the porn star, and the way he puts his hands on his daughter's ass and walking into the Miss
yeah.
Teen USA dressing. I mean, all the way he speaks on a daily basis about women, and they're totally unperturbed by it.
And here's the thing, they have to know that on some level he's guilty of at least some of these things. They can't be in complete, like, they're the mental disconnect is just too strong. Like, you confront them on all of them, and they have an excuse for all of it. Oh, he said bad things, Biden did bad things. He's like, it's, even though he, like, there's always an excuse. And like, you bring up like, because right now their whole thing is save the children, save the children. You're like, yeah, save the children is great. You know that he was charged with raping a 13-year-old girl, right? Like, you bring up these, yeah, he was charged with, I don't know if charged is a correct word, but
Accused,
he was
probably.
accused.
Yeah.
There was a lawsuit for him raping a 13-year-old girl with Jeffrey Epstein. He wished Ghislaine Maxwell well. Of
Yeah.
all the, called Kamala Harris a monster, wished an accused child trafficker well. It seems weird that these people have never really come out all that strongly against the Catholic Church during their little kerfuffle.
Yeah.
These people are not all about saving the children. They're about, to use a term that they used to like to use against the left, they are all about virtue signaling, saving the children.
I buy that. I mean,
Yeah.
and there is, at least in my circles here, I mean, I'm not a sociologist, but I can speak to Oklahoma, red state Oklahoma, and the attitudes here, and an attitude that I used to have to a degree. But there has been an othering of the Democratic Party. So what happens is, and this explains part of the appeal of QAnon and that wild story that all the Democratic Party and all of Hollywood, Tom Hanks, et cetera, they're all part of a massive cabal of pedophiles as part of a precursor to the apocalypse, right? Well, this plays well because they have already been primed to believe that a Democrat is in some way satanic. Now, this sounds like hyperbole, but they really do think like the Republicans are the party of God. So by default, opposition to the Republican Party will be the party of God's opponent or enemy. And so they have othered a Democrat to the point where now they can shut down the reasoning center and say, oh, yeah, well, Trump did this. Well, at least he's not a Democrat. Well, Trump said that. Well, at least he's not a Democrat. Well, he put out 100 tweets and retweets being cruel to people. Well, at least he's not a Democrat. And so what they've done is the Republican Party has effectively set up a mechanism where the worst of God is still better than the best of Satan. And so they use that as an excuse to rally behind a man who, if their own son had displayed those characteristics, the cruelty and the sexism and the racism and the predation, if their husband did it, if their father did it, they wouldn't put up with it for a moment in their lives. But if it's the president, go ahead.
There was a perfect TikTok that I saw yesterday. Actually, a girl asked her Trumper parents. She's like, there's a guy that I want to go on a date with. And she starts to tell her parents about him. And she's telling him all the characteristics of Trump. Well, he's been accused of sexual assault, probably credibly. And he has some money problems. And she's like going on and on, like describing known characteristics of Trump. And they're like, why would you go out with someone like that? And she's like, well, I wouldn't, but you guys want to vote him in for the presidency. And they were so mad.
That's beautiful.
So,
oh, God. I want to use that. I mean, like, I couldn't do the dating thing, but I could come up with another scenario.
Business partner.
Yeah.
But it was incredible to watch them like just be like, well, how could you? And they go back into he was accused of just, man, there's definitely a disconnect on how they treat these accusations of impropriety that seem to have a lot, like they cannot not have weight to them after there have been so many at this point, with Donald Trump compared to anyone else. And we all know the time-honored game of if this had been Obama, it's there.
How are you dealing with the people who make the false equivalence argument, like the third partiers? Because I'm surrounded by them. They populate my pages, and there's this indignant huff. Well, they're both equally bad. Therefore, I'm going to opt out or third party. And I consider it almost a kind of virtue signaling. What's your approach there?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like I understand their frustration with the Democrats because they're not perfect. Like, obviously, I'm not voting for Joe Biden because I think he's going to bring us to Valhalla. I'm voting for him because I don't know if you've noticed, we are in a zombie infested bus station right now. There are many, many zombies, and I do not have I don't have the zombie vaccine yet. I might. I got into a zombie vaccine trial and only got a 50% chance, might have gotten the zombie vaccine placebo. Anyway, we have we have two other buses that are labeled like that are like, they just do not have the gas to get us out of the bus station. They're making a lot of promises about getting us out of the bus station. They have the Wi-Fi on it. They have the gold-plated toilet, but they do not have the gasoline. They don't have, that's me saying that the Green Party and libertarians don't have the fucking votes. There's only one bus that will get us away from the zombies, and that's the Biden Harris bus. Okay, I don't care that it doesn't have Wi-Fi. I don't care that that it might not get me the healthcare plan that I exactly want. I care that I'm not going to get bitten by these fucking zombies. Okay.
I told somebody the other day that it's like, the patient's in the MASH unit and there's arterial spray and all I have is duct tape. Right. I don't have the best surgeon. I don't have all the best tools right now. This is damage control. I'm trying to save the patient. And so I think Biden's a terrible candidate. There were so many other people that I so wish would have won the nomination. I kind of get to a degree why he's there. I mean, he's kind of safe, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, come on. I'm like 300 plus million Americans. This is the best we got. The Democrats are notorious for making it much more difficult on ourselves than it needs to be.
You know what surprised me, actually? I think, and this unpopular opinion, in retrospect, I think Biden was a strategically good choice. And like, I it feels weird saying choice because then people are like, oh my God, there was collusion by the Democratic Party to choose who the nominee was. But like, hear me. I think that them going, all right, we just give us an old white dude to take away the argument of, to take away them just, you know, yelling about like, this person's too young, this person's too what, like that, like there's something about him being this old, like this older statesmanly type guy that let them, I don't know, there was I think Joe Biden was just an easier, there was something easy about having him go up against Trump because he is so Mr. Rogersy, I think is an easy way to phrase that. He is just that fucking, you know, no malarkey-ish, I think is the way to phrase it. But I don't know. It's because he is a fucking turkey sandwich of a human being.
So, I mean, turkey sandwich of a human. I got to write that down.
Yeah,
I'm going to use that. Turkey sandwich of a human.
Yeah, turkey sandwich with mayo, and you know, if you want to go really spicy, add a touch of salt.
So, do you? You know, this is slippery territory, but do you think it's unfair to talk about the advanced age of a candidate? I mean, both of them in their 70s.
Oh,
but, you know,
absolutely.
the average lifespan of the American male, I think, is 78, right?
Yeah,
So
I
Biden.
think, like when people say it's ageism, I'm like, no, it's your health starts to slip when you get past a certain age, and being concerned about the health of the person who's in charge of the executive branch of your country is completely natural. I think that's fine.
It's certainly a conversation that, you know, we're talking of even in an even greater capacity than about the importance of the vice president. The vice president historically has been the person who attends state funerals and sits behind it during the State of the Union and nods blankly. But if you have somebody who is approaching the age of 80, and we are talking, you know, then I think more seriously about Kamala Harris. And I like Kamala Harris. I know a lot of people flip out about her days when she was attorney general, or I want to say
attorney general. Yeah.
But I look back and I don't see the alarm bells. I mean, I see some things I disagree with, but I also have seen her grilling people during Senate hearings, and I think she's badass. And I would definitely take her as president of the United States. It would be historic. But she also shares, I think, my value system.
Yeah.
So that to me solves a lot of problems.
It's one thing that I think people, the first thing that they hear, because this is what's been discussed the most, is, oh, she's a cop. She's a cop. She's a cop. She was the AG. I try to remind people of this. Look at her record as a senator. She was one of the most progressive senators with her voting record. Second, I want to say she was she was close with Kirsten Gillibrand, but she was really only second to Bernie Sanders in terms of how progressive her voting record was. So when people are like, this is a really centrist ticket, Joe Biden was kind of like in the middle of the Democratic Party in terms of his voting record. So he's not like center of the, you know, of the voting populace in the Congress. He's center of the Democratic Party, and Kamala is to the pretty far left in terms of how she's voted. So I think that this ticket is going to hopefully, you know, push the party further left, as long as there is as long as there isn't a coup and they do get the support in the Senate and Congress, which looks like it could happen. There's
all right. Let's play it out. You and me.
Yeah.
All right. We're sitting here at the chessboard.
we
loses, like we know, if he loses by just a little bit, well, there's no way I would have lost at all. If he loses by a lot, he says, there's no way I would have ever lost by this margin. Yeah. And if he wins, he says, I told you so. There is no scenario in front of us where he's going to graciously accept a defeat.
Which is terrifying.
I mean, does Pence back him up if he refuses to leave, or does Pence? I mean, Pence hasn't really done anything but nod and smile for the last 4 years. But I mean, the Republicans have proven completely spineless. Are there mechanisms in place for removal inside the government offices now? Will there be people who say, no, the votes are in, you have to leave, and they'll help push him out the door? I'm not confident they will.
And that's the problem, right? Because 4 years ago, I would have said, yeah, of course there are. And there are technically those. It's just a quick plug for tomorrow's show, and I have to be upfront because he said that because of he works in DC and he's a lawyer and things are a little nutty out there for DC. Andrew Seidel is scheduled to be my guest for tomorrow, but he said this is a tentative because of how nutty things are right there. So he could probably explain some of this stuff a little better than either of us can. But yeah, like there are mechanisms in place, but that counts on people following the rules and the norms, and people haven't been doing that. Like, what do you do when nobody says no? Like this has not been like they're not following the medical suggestions from the CDC. Why would they follow the rules from the election? Like we don't know. We
You've
don't.
seen those video clips of people, Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell, et cetera, during the 2016 election when they were saying we shouldn't nominate a Supreme Court justice during an election year, and then immediately they
use my words against me.
I've always had a disdain for Graham and Mitch McConnell. I have a loathing in my heart for Mitch McConnell that I'm not proud of. But I
never thought I didn't want to be a person that could have this deep of a disdain for someone that I have never met, that has not personally harmed me or somebody that I love. But yeah, I have a deep personal hatred for those two that disturbs me. And I want that to be gone. I want them to be out so that I don't feel like this anymore. This bothers me.
I read Dr. Mary Trump's book, Donald Trump's niece.
Oh, same. It was good.
Yeah. And, it explains a lot. I'm not saying that but when you understand the background and how throughout his entire life he was rewarded by a sociopathic father for sociopathic behavior, you begin to see the formative years and how he, for his whole life, has been excused and rewarded. Yeah. And he's been given the opportunity to skate, living a life pretty much without consequence into his 70s now. And that's part of I think the stuff that irritates me is that, there are those people who walk around with misty-eyed optimism and say everything happens for a reason and what goes around comes around and karma. And I'm like, no,
sometimes assholes just keep getting what they want.
I wish we lived in a world where people got what they deserved. And yet we can all think of examples of horrible people who got away with it. And we can think of examples of tremendously good people who just got the shaft. Yeah. And I used to think, well, it'll all come around at some point, cause and effect. The courts, the lawsuits, the bankruptcies, the public backlash. I used to think that there would be consequences. No longer. I think when and if he finally goes, he's going to become the tweeter in chief. He's going to continue to just orchestrate chaos and lose his shit. And the sycophants and the cult members will be right there with him. Perhaps they'll even go start their own state or a church.
Oh my God. You're not kidding. It's as was pointed out by Andy Joyce in the comment. He was trained by Roy Cohn in all the dirty tricks and attack modes. Like, we're still seeing the people who were part of the Nixon White House. This is the work from Roger Stone, Roy Cohn, and that whole crew that just said, never let up, never stop attacking. Darvo, deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. And this is what they do anytime they're attacked. They just attack right back, and never. It's the point of view from these types is that as long as until you stop fighting, like as long as you're still fighting, you're winning. So I don't think these people are ever going to stop fighting a day in their lives. Like I think they realized that the way that Nixon lost was that he gave up. He opted to quit. And I think that Trump thinks that as long as he keeps on fighting to stay in the White House, even if he doesn't have the votes, he'll just be able to stay in.
Yeah. I'm interested in the weaponization of language, scare words. I've seen strategic use. Socialism is a great example. Like,
oh my God, yeah.
You throw the word socialism out and it's a conversation stopper. Walls go up. People shut down. We're not because they have been primed to think the Soviet Union and Mao's China and we worship the state. Remember, back in the mid 20th century, socialism and communism and Marxism and Leninism, et cetera, they were all aligned with Satan or the great Satan, and we were one nation under God. It was a positioning of us as being superior politically, morally, etc. And that's carried over. So now, if you and I talk about not National Socialism, but we talk about democratic socialism and the stuff that conservatives enjoy every day, police and fire and schools and public service and roads and highways and blah, blah, blah. But if you call it democratic socialism, they still lose their minds and say, my America is not socialist. This is another instance, I think, of the weaponization of language. A great example is the founders of Black Lives Matter, who have studied Marxism. And granted, they represent a demographic that has not been served by capitalism. They've been marginalized.
Oh, yeah.
And they're more interested in a societal responsibility to create at least an equal starting point for its citizens. And I think that's fair. We should be able to have a conversation about that.
Yes.
If I'm talking to somebody like my own mother, well, you've got Marxists who founded Black Lives Matter. Therefore, the message of Black Lives Matter is not one of equality and ending racism and protecting people and keeping them safe. It's about Marxism.
I had never heard that. I'd heard rumors that it was Marxists who started Black Lives Matter, but whenever I hear that, it's always coming from like a far right wing.
I didn't say they were. I'm not saying it's a Marxist movement. I'm saying that the founders, who are laudable, amazing people.
Gotcha.
They are. Okay. I think they're extremely impressive people, but they have done a lot. They've studied a lot of Marxism, and I think they are interested more in trying to create a society that, if not is not Marxist necessarily, but it's a society that allows for more of a social contract. So we're creating greater equality at the beginning of the equation. But I don't think BLM is about Marxism. Black Lives Matter is about freaking safety and respect and humanity.
The number of people who do not understand that and just say they're Marxists,
and that's what my mother does that, and that's her way of negating all of Black Lives Matter. So if someone's out there painting it onto the street, she doesn't say this is an opportunity for us to right a wrong and to humanize the people who have been dehumanized and to try to stand beside our brothers and sisters as part of the human condition. All she's stuck on is back here. And I think at least one of them is gay. So now it's a double whammy because they're perverts in rebellion against God, her God, the God of the Bible. It's funny, Yvette, I don't know that it's productive, but I've just gotten so fed up that whenever I'm talking to a lot of Christians, I've just started calling the Bible the talking animals book. Like I try not to do that because because they're going to recoil and they're going to get upset and whatnot. But I'm like, it's your book. Like it's your book. I didn't bring this to the conversation. I'm not telling other people to believe it. I'm not saying it's absolutely. I'm not the one you're the one doing that. And you got the talking snake and Balaam's talking donkey. It's the talking animals book. And so from now, I have found myself when somebody tries to chastise me or rule my life with the Bible, I'm like, oh, well, that's fine, but you're quoting the talking animals book. And they just kind of cock their head like they're not sure how to respond to that. Hey, it's your book. I didn't write the damn thing.
Look, they also have a talking burning bush. And look, after enough pills of ecstasy and not using condoms, I think that my burning bush is talking to me too. All right. Like maybe that's what was going on in the Bible.
I'm sorry, you've got a dirt man and a rib woman in an enchanted garden, and you've got a superhero who gets extra power based on the length of his hair. You got flying chariots of fire and magic mud. And
Jesus had some weird powers. He was he was just a really weird superhero. Like it was basically like Sandwich Man. Like what? We got a lot of people and we ran out of food. Like hold on, I said bunch of sandwiches. Here's my pile of sandwiches. You are
Jesus the Sandwich Man. That's another
Sandwich Man. Like he would be the best Subway employee ever.
Jesus the Sandwich Man. Okay, I got that.
That's going into I'm just saying, if that goes into your next book, I just want a little shout out and the thank yous.
You will get you will get a footnote, an asterisk, and a credit. Well, I just get so tired of everybody. Look, we come back to othering. How much of the modern day Republican Party is about control, sexual control, identity control? When you have people, essentially the churches who have crossed well over the state church line and are telling their congregants to vote biblically, right?
I mean, that depends, I guess, on how much you buy into this whole, like, because you can look at the way the church presents itself, and like, because you and I both grew up religious, and the way the church presents itself to its members is, this is God trying to save your soul, and like, the main thing they drive home a lot is, one of it is sexual control, obviously, like, don't you'll be closer to God. God wants you to save your virginity till you're married, all this good stuff. And if you buy into that, and you buy into the church, loves you and is trying to take care of you through these behaviors, you don't see it as them controlling you. And then you get out and you see the way that you see this Handmaid's Tale type structure to the church, and the way they're trying to control everything. And you go, how is this possible, that this is entangled everything so much? And it's like, I wish that I didn't see the church as trying to control society to the point that it is, but it really is. Have you seen the documentary on Netflix? It's a miniseries called The Family.
I saw part of it. Yeah, it's alarming. This sort of
Oh my
shadow
God.
organization that's
Like,
promoting religiosity behind the scenes.
I feel like it feels like it confirms every last, like, suspicion that you have about, these are shadowy organizations behind the scenes in DC that are controlling everything. Or like, there really are people, like, little, like, if I hadn't known before, like, I didn't know before watching this, that this little group ran the National Prayer Breakfast. Like, I thought that it was Congress that ran that or something. It's this unknown group that people, like, don't know the name of, that runs this, and it's just a way for a bunch of lobbyists to get together and try to get money and influence into Congress.
I'm trying to picture you as a religious person.
It really stopped. I'm like, oh, that's why you've been sitting here like this for a minute.
Like you said, I came from religion. I don't know that I knew that about you.
Yes, I was Catholic, and I mean, it's because I stopped really being Catholic-y. Neil, the 604 atheist, says hi to you, by the way. But yeah, I was like, I used to go to church twice a week when I was like 15 or so. I was a choir girl. I like to sing. That was why I like to go to church, because there was choir. But college, like, I started flipping over into spiritual but not religious. And so religious but not religious. And then slowly, the slide to atheism happened.
Confession for you must have been a ball. You just seem like such a strong personality, going your own way, doing your own thing. It's easier to get forgiveness than permission.
God, I don't think I ever got, like, I don't think I went to confession after, like, junior high, and before, like, I don't think I was interesting enough to have anything fun happen to confess by the time I stopped going to confession.
I mean, was that mostly just about punching the clock, though? I mean, the Catholic Church, I know they have no interest in Bible literacy among their people.
Because I went to a Catholic school, like, and we had Bible class every fucking day. So, like, you knew your Bible pretty goddamn well. Like, by the time you got out of there, it wasn't just baby Jesus, meek and mild. Like, I wish we knew a little bit more, like, because I got out of there and I still have not read my Bible cover to cover, but I've read quite a bit of it. Like, we got out of there knowing some fucked up shit happened in the Old Testament, at least.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, most of the Catholics that I know, it's like they have to go and punch the clock, and they sit and they do their thing. And now I'm off the hook, and it's beer and bingo, and I can go and, party on and do whatever I want to do. And then I can just go reset once a week. I don't see a lot of like religious allegiance or fervor in the Catholics in my circle. And I was always curious about that, how much of that is just, well, if I go on Sunday, now I can kind of live and do what I want to do for the rest of the week and screw it.
Yeah, I mean, I swear to God, when people leave and go to college, it's not just that people stop, like, what people do when they leave. It's not an automatic, I stopped believing in God. It's an automatic, I stopped wanting to get up on Sunday mornings. Yeah. Like, that's the day of the week that you want to sleep. And then you're slowly, then you're slowly like, wait, Jesus didn't smite me for not waking up on Sunday. Maybe this whole thing that I've been told was bullshit.
I'm amazed at all the culty stuff that I did that I didn't know was culty. Like when I was in fourth grade, went to a private religious school, and we're out in the parking lot playing basketball, but we're wearing slacks and dress shoes the whole time. I mean, to us, that was just our normal. I remember Sunday mornings, if we didn't make it to church, our mom sat us down in the living room and we had to watch church on television for 2 hours. And so there we are, being programmed. It's like that scene at the end of Clockwork Orange where Malcolm McDowell has his eyes peeled back and they're indoctrinating. And at the time, it just seemed like, well, this is what you do. You got to sit through 2 hours and get the word, and then you're good and you can go on and do what you want with the rest of your Sunday. And you look back and you see all the crazy stuff like communion, right? Essentially, whenever, especially in the Catholic Church. Oh yeah. The second you put Jesus in your mouth, it turns to flesh. And
I want some 7, because I went through first communion too, and that's second grade / when you're 7, and I want some totally metal 7-year-old to be like, give me the flesh of Jesus. I will eat your bones and drink of your blood.
That's beautiful.
Dr.
Transubstantiation is so fucking culty. And I think, I'm sorry, you think you are, first of all, the words eat Jesus are just funny to me. But I think the idea that this becomes the flesh and blood of Jesus Christ is so
Gen Z, they want to eat Jesus's ass specifically.
It's so Jim Jones. It's so bizarre. Right? It's so culty. And yet, because, and this is, I think, the number one, the biggest denomination on the planet, right? There's that meme on the internet, and it shows communion, and it says, eat Jesus 1 cracker at a time. Like, how many crackers constitute a whole Jesus? How many crackers do I need till I get a whole Jesus?
That's like one of those guessing games of how many peanut M&Ms are in this jar. How many crackers for 1 Jesus?
I think 600 crackers would make one, depending on the cracker. By the way,
can't. It's if you're doing that guessing game, you can't go over though.
I saw
how many crackers is that going
something
over?
about how the Pope gave some other mamby-pamby sort of allusion to the fact that gay people actually weren't subhuman. And, you see these sort of struggles for the church to remain relevant. I just released a speech in advance of the election that talks about the growing irreligiosity in the United States, which gives me just a modicum of hope. I think, the court's being stacked and the evangelicals in the middle of this wild power grab and Trump at the front as the sort of savior figure. It is extremely discouraging. What does give me a little bit of hope is that demographically, 26% of citizens of the United States have declared that they are non-religious, not necessarily atheists, but they're not interested in religion, certainly not fundamentalist religion, which means they don't want to sit around and be judgy about everybody else. They don't give a shit if you're gay or you're Muslim or something else. They have more of a xenophilic attitude about people who are not citizens of the U.S. They just want to live and be happy and whatnot. And they don't need religion. It's not a meaningful part of their lives. And I'm like, well, that number is just on the incline. And at some point, I would think, and I may be wrong here, but if that number continues to rise, then it would stand to reason that their elected representatives, whether it's a congressperson or whether it's the president of the United States, would reflect the culture that is growing less religious. Now, I don't know if it's going to happen in my lifetime, but that's a straw of hope that I have been clutching onto during the insanity of life.
It'll happen during my non-existent children's generation's lifetime.
I mean, it may be true. I mean, I'm 52, so I'm like, well, it's probably a decades-long process. But at some point, right, do we come to a moment of critical mass when, when the president doesn't have an evangelical advisory board with people like Paula White waltzing in? I mean, have you watched any of Paula White's stuff?
I've seen some just because she's out there because of Trump. You know what the sad thing is that more than likely Trump is our first atheist president.
I buy that.
Yeah, like it's there were rumors that there were atheist presidents, obviously, before that, hundreds of years ago. But like, uh, more than likely, Trump is like, he's definitely not religious. Like like when he says, the Bible's my favorite book. What's your favorite verse? They're all so important.
They're all great. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're all wonderful.
yeah.
Well, I've been reading Michael Cohen's book. Michael Cohen, his former personal
Oh,
attorney, right? The
how is
Inside.
that one?
Well, I struggle a little bit because, part of me is like, is this a genuine mea culpa? Is he genuinely filled with regret about the man he was, or is he an opportunist, or is he trying to save
He
his reputation?
seems
And
regretful.
I can't know his intent, but the language of the book is one where he starts by saying, I fucked up. I bought into it. I was corrupt. I was an awful. I mean, and the fact that he throws it out at the beginning, it
Yeah.
doesn't sound like he's equivocating. It sounds like he's like, I was part of a mechanism that did great damage. And now I'm going to attempt to try to explain how I got sucked in and try to make it right. And so maybe that's the optimist in me, but it reads like someone who was genuinely there. And he said outright, he's like, Trump's not fucking religious. He said he just knows that in order to consolidate power, you align yourself with mega pastors and people of religious influence, and you bring them in. And he was talking about this one time when he brought in all these folks, and he sat there as they all laid hands and prayed on him. And he was just incredulous because he was like, if you people only knew that the guy you're laying hands on thinks you are all full of shit and is using you for power.
For a photo op.
And maybe the pastors are there. Maybe that's part of like a deal with the devil for them. Maybe they know, well, this guy knows he doesn't believe. Maybe I don't believe, but it's all about power. Catherine Stewart has a book called The Power Worshippers. And it talks a lot about how people who may or may not even be religious have learned to weaponize religion for power. Because if you start with God, you can excuse anything, you can other anybody. So it's never been about faith. It's always been about power and money.
We can bring this back to Dave Rubin, who's found God, it seems, because he toured with Jordan Peterson for a while. I don't know if he toured with Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro, but he toured with at least Jordan Peterson. And after that, I don't know if he's found like which God he's found, whether he's refound his Jewish roots or whether he's found Christianity, but seems like he's taken the God pill. And he spoke at, I say we had him speak at Reason Rally, like I ran the thing. He spoke at Reason Rally. This is a guy who used to be, a skeptical voice.
If he's a Christian, there are specific Bible verses I would like to make Dave aware of if he is a gay man. Like, I mean,
I don't know if he's gone for Christianity or Judaism or, refound his Jewish roots. I don't want to, but he's said in multiple videos now that there's something at the very least that he's refound religion. It's very odd.
A quick digression. I'm always interested in people who they fashion a God in their own image, right? I interviewed, she's a precious person, but she is a gay person who is a Christian. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, alarms, ding, 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 there's something wrong here, right? Have you seen Yahweh's attitudes about gay people? And she had just found a way to navigate through and find all the good, love, happy, happy, joy, joy, let's all buy the world a Coke verses. And those are what she clings to. But some people have taken that even further. There is a Queen James Bible. And they took out all the they just took an X-Acto knife and they just sliced out all the anti-gay. They edited God is essentially what they've done. And you can buy it. It's called the Queen James Bible. So maybe Rubin has fashioned a religion that's like a custom fit. He cherry-picked the stuff he liked, ignored the rest. I'm not sure exactly that's how one would approach quote unquote absolute truth, but maybe that's what he did.
Wow. Just I think, but like we all kind of like when I think that's what every single religion does now. Like, because none of the modern Christian religions follow the entire thing. They claim they do. They're like, we're not here to cherry pick. We're here to make sure that gay people feel bad about themselves and to still eat shellfish.
There's a guy. His name is A.J. Jacobs. He's a comedian, and he wrote a book called The Year of Living Biblically. And he
I
decided
remember that.
for 1 year he was going to live the Bible literally as close as possible without going to jail. Like if there was something that was, like he wasn't going to own or beat slaves, there he had a line because, he had to have a line.
The fact that that's a part of it that he had to take into account.
Oh God, it's fascinating. The book itself is hysterical. He grew his beard out and he blew a horn at the beginning of every month, and he wouldn't touch his wife when she was menstruating because she was
I'm gonna have
unclean.
to. I've decided now. I'm hunting him down and getting him onto the live stream. I hope
H.A.
sounds good,
Jacobs.
guys. H.A. Jacobs.
I'll send you a link to the book. So he did all this stuff. He even found one guy, and he got this older man and got him to admit that he'd had sex outside of marriage. And so he stoned him. He picked up yard pebbles and started throwing him at this old man for being an adulterer. I mean, the guy's book is freaking hysterical. But there's a meme out there that says, let's play a game. Open the Bible to a random passage and do whatever it says. Last one to go to prison wins. And I think that says a lot about the supposedly good book. And then, you got guys like Trump, right? Remember when he tear gasses the protesters, he walks around to hold up a Bible he does not read in front of a church he does not attend. And what happens to the MAGAs, right? They don't look and say, well, you don't know the Bible. You don't go to church. You don't give a shit. Their first thing is to see the in-group symbol, right? The Bible and the church, probably a flag somewhere. And that's what they respond to. And their reasoning centers have shut down. They think in binary terms, A, B, yes, no, good, evil, black, white.
Their golden calf.
And I think, to live in a nuance-free world that's really it's a Crayola way of approaching this complex life that we live. I don't know what the antidote is to it. I've come to the point where right now I'm not having conversations with MAGAs.
It makes me really sad.
I try to I've always been the guy where it's like I was talked out of a bad idea. I was reasoned out of an unreasonable faith and an unreasonable I at this moment am so exasperated. I've come to the opinion that I'm going to push through you. I'm going to vote past you. I'm going to live around. I'm going to minimize. I'm going to create the world that you did not create in spite of you. And I hate that because I want to have conversations. But right now, I'm not interested in talking. I'm just like, fuck it.
If people want to hear proof that I still don't have, quote, Trump derangement syndrome. Yesterday, I had a tweet go a little viral / I got into a bunch of arguments with people online that there isn't a fake Melania Trump. And it was very weird to have a bunch of maggots retweeting me and being like, yeah, she gets it.
Where did that come from? So, is that something that the left came up with? That he's got a fill-in that's going in with sunglasses or something?
It's because whenever she puts on sunglasses, it's just that she looks a lot different from some angles or it'll be like, and I say this as someone who likewise loves Botox. And I mean, I fucking love this shit. And so I'm not saying this with any hate in my heart. I'm saying this with jealousy that I can't afford as much as she does. But she there will be times when she's, due for some more Botox or filler or whatever, and she's just wearing sunglasses, and it looks like her nose shape looks a little different, or her teeth look like there's the pictures from the last few days, like you can see her gum line. And thing is, when you have new, more recent Botox injection, it relaxes your upper lip so you don't see the gum line when you smile. That's a little trick that a lot of people don't know about. I don't get that done. For the record, the main thing I get done is my forehead because I spent most of my 20s looking like this. So anyways, but she these pictures have been going around from 4 or 5 times that she was wearing sunglasses, and people are saying, she was that it's a fake Melania. So each time these pictures come out, I hunt for a picture from the same event of her not wearing sunglasses. And every fucking time there's a picture from the same event of her in the same outfit, not wearing sunglasses. And I'm like, here you go.
Well, that diminishes our credibility. Like we're out here trying to take a moral stand against the candidate. And when we get that stuff wrong, it makes us look stupid and it kills our credibility.
And people are yelling at me. I got into 2 arguments in which I hate that I've had to defend Melania Trump and Rudy Giuliani this week. But I
Oh
really
yeah, I saw the clip you were talking about where he tucked in his shirt. I was much more alarmed about the fact that they were trailed. He trailed her into an unlit bedroom to
yeah.
conduct business than I was, because to me
It's
it looked like he tucked in his shirt. It didn't look
yeah.
like he was masturbating.
I
I'm like,
I really wonder, and here's the thing, we don't know what, like, if they had done prep with other parts of the film crew before that. Because of how they edited it, we don't know what happened around that. We
yeah,
saw 2 minutes of film with them, but like we saw her when she was helping him with the microphone, partially untuck his shirt, and it looked to me like, yeah, he's a gross human being. I have a zillion reasons why I think he sucks, but I really do think he was tucking in his shirt. And I hate that I've had to defend the honesty of Rudy
well,
Giuliani.
they
Vomit.
came after you for that, didn't they? Because, well,
Oh yeah,
obviously he's a horrible human. I think there's
yeah, he is horrible, but I
the,
don't think he was lying about this one thing.
there is a tendency, and the left is not. We're not innocent of,
Yep.
like, we think if we give any quarter, we have somehow sold out, or we're helping the enemy. And I just think there's enough genuinely awful stuff that we
Yes.
can document. You don't have to reach
Oh yeah.
and
Like
create that.
I mean, between telling people I think this was done with editing tricks, and I don't think, or just to make it look like his hand was down there for longer than it was. And I mean, Slate did a breakdown of it where they said, yeah, this was done with editing to make it look like he was fidgeting for longer. And it's not a fucking fake Melania. And I got attacked for that.
My
So,
favorite Melania meme that's out there. I don't know if I should even.
dear,
It just makes me laugh. It shows her
do it.
face, and the words in large bold letters said, "He had gold, so we make fuck." That's my favorite Melania. That's my favorite
Oh,
Melania meme.
I,
I've hesitated to post it because, I'm afraid they'll come after me for, I don't know. Who knows how they'll come in. When you're a public
I,
figure, you have to worry a little bit about, because
I,
anybody who thinks you're operating, I don't see it as sexist. I look at her and I'm like, if Donald Trump, I think she despises the man. I think she
you know
loathes
what's
Donald Trump.
what's crazy is that he is apparently a lot like her father. Like
Really?
I've read like, because I'm fascinated a little bit by, like, because they dated for 5 years before they got married. Like, I'd seen a few interviews of them sitting together. Like, they actually are a relatively good, or sorry, 5 years before they got married, not 5 months. They were like, they're a surprisingly good match, which is strange. Like, she married her father, only richer.
But I mean, didn't you see all these videos like where they're about to board Air Force One? He reaches down to grab her hand and she's just like, bam, like, don't touch me, you disgusting
It's
orange thing.
but I mean, at the same, like, I think that she's on board with his shittier self. Like, you heard that conversation with her friend where she was
Yeah.
like, "What about these children? What about the children? Fuck the children!" I'm like, my God, this
I
is
saw
like,
the card out. It shows
what
her
about these
face and it says
children?
Merry
Fuck the
fucking Christmas on it.
Merry fucking, like, that's, it's what, fuck Christmas. Shit, like, it's the war on this is the war on Christmas. The calls are coming from inside the house. That's like, oh my God.
By the way, I do want to thank Donald Trump for reaching into the vocal cords of millions of Americans and liberating them so that they can finally say Merry. They were forbidden to say Merry Christmas culturally by
I know.
those evil
Oh,
Democrats.
I
But
feel
now,
so freed. I had
now,
not like,
thanks to Donald, we're all able to now say it without being clad in irons and hauled away to the, to the dungeon.
I hadn't been able to sing some Christmas songs since Bush was president. It's just, praise Trump,
Praise
praise Trump.
that. And that shit plays so well. The war on Christmas stuff. I mean, there's a verse. I know we're on the clock here, but
Yeah, I don't want to hold you up. But, like,
we talk a little bit about how people who live in arguably the most religiously free country on the freaking planet, right? I mean, they can wear Christian apparel, they got Christian radio and TV stations, they got cross earrings, they're going to church anytime they want, they can own and read and evangelize the Bible, whatever. I mean, they're totally, totally free. But how how do you come up with this persecution narrative? Well, first of all, you've othered everybody else, so you're constantly paranoid and in fear because it's like the immigrants. They're at the southern border. They're coming for us. They're going to steal your job and
I'm
rape your women.
shocked that we don't have a migrant caravan right now.
Yeah. There's
There'll
part
be
of that
one
going
tomorrow.
on. And there's also, Christ said in the book of Matthew that the best believers the obedient believers are actually persecuted for his sake. And so what happens when you live in arguably the most religiously free country in the world and you are not persecuted, but you want to be a good, faithful crusader for God, you manufacture the persecution. And that's why everybody's using religious liberty. And, our religious liberties are under attack. This is a Fox News dog whistle. And I'm like, well, no, it's not about persecution. Really, mostly it's about disagreement. And these people want to live in a world where nobody disagrees with them. And they are so unbelievably tissue skinned and constantly wine-baggy and affected that if you hold up a hand and say, no, I don't believe the Talking Animals book, and no, this country doesn't belong to you more than it belongs to me, and yes, you're a corrupt asshole, that they want to sort of insulate themselves from that. And they've weaponized religious language and religious liberty as a term to do so. Love the love you kitty.
This is Lexi never makes an appearance, so I'm very excited that my big fat kitten. She's here to say hello to. Like when I say my big fat kitten, I mean she weighs 17 pounds. She's my chunk.
Your cat weighs 3 times as much as Linus. That's just wild.
I've had her since she was 4 months old, and she is my baby cat. Like at night, like when once in a while, like we close the doors so that the cats won't come in, and because Oliver, I love so much, but he'll try to play all night, and it's like, Oliver, I need to sleep. So we'll close the door to keep them out. And most of we don't want the cats to need to, to have an accident in there, and we don't want the room to smell like litter box. Once in a while, Lexi will come in, and it's like, all right, she can spend the night and not have an accident, but she'll also sleep right on my chest, and she's 17 pounds.
Oh God!
And I'm like, I can stand this for about 5 minutes before I'm like, do I have the corona or is it just Lexi?
It simulated heart attack because of the weight upon your lungs and stuff.
More weight. Oh, she's a big girl.
Linus says, thank you for having us. And it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you for hanging out with me. So for most of my audience already knows who you are and where they can find you and where they can listen to more of your smooth radio voice. And of course, you also read your audio book, that the audio version of your new book of Confessions of a Former Fox News Christian. Where can people find you and all of your stuff? Because I love you, my audience loves you, and they want to find more of you.
Oh, you're kind. Well, first of all, I got to clarify something you said in your social media post. I host a website called The Thinking Atheist and a podcast called The Thinking Atheist, but I am not The Thinking Atheist.
I apologize
the Thinking
for
Atheist
calling you The Thinking Atheist.
Is an icon that represents the rejection of faith. I'm the guy who took 30 years to figure out that humans could not live to be 900 years old. Like, I'm not a great thinker. I was late to that party, but I want to, as I come out of a faith culture, I wanted to encourage, faith's a shitty way to find out what's true. Let's pursue some evidence. Let's ask some questions. Let's stay curious. And so that's what The Thinking Atheist represents. But you can hear all the podcast at thethinkingatheist.com, or you can just go to my personal website, sethandrews.com, and all the links and everything are there. Okay.
Good times. Thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us. It's at this late hour before the election when we're all stressed out, and we needed your smooth radio voice to calm us down, guys. I'm going to stick around here and chat with you a bit more. I'm going to let you go. I'll see you around the interwebs. Good luck and Godspeed, and get some sleep, my friend.
All right, you be good. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
See you.
Hey guys. Just figured I'd stick around for a few minutes and just kind of chat ski with you and update, do some update skis on things like things like the Rona and whatnot, because we're at a point where the Rona is as bad as it's been now, because we keep on seeing cases going up. I see a couple of you guys saying thank you, Seth. Isn't he just delightful? As he said whenever I've asked him to come on here, you asked me to talk at a microphone, I'm there. So he's I'm very lucky to have him in my group of friends. He's better spoken than me, to say the least. Whenever he starts chatting, I realize that I have a zillion verbal hesitations in my speech patterns, and I realize I need to get better at this. So I'm glad that I have him on to remind me that I need to work at this a little bit more, because I want to be better at this job and I want to be better at this for you guys. So anyways, so let's have a look at what's happening with COVID right now. There are a lot of new cases, to say the least. Larry Williams just pointed out the U.S. reached over 100,000 new cases yesterday. Which is the highest number of new cases that we've had in a day. So for all of Donald Trump, hold on a quick second. So for all of Donald Trump's telling us it's going to go away, it's going to be a miracle, and I believe Donald Trump Jr. just went on the air, or I believe it was yesterday, saying that there are practically no deaths from this. We're still experiencing, I believe the day that he said that we're experiencing practically zero deaths, we had 1,004 officially counted deaths due to COVID that day. So we're not we're not going down in fatality counts. Hospitalizations are going up, fatalities are going up, cases are going up. It is not due to more testing. Hospitalizations don't go up due to more testing. Fatalities do not go up due to more testing. So it's once upon a time, people were like, oh, there are more cases due to more testing. That was, or more confirmed cases due to more testing. That was in like this bit of the second wave, because more than likely we had our highest amount of cases during that first wave, or probably getting back to about that amount now, but we had our highest peak up until now during that first wave that really, really hit New York City hard, when we didn't know what was going on and it was just going through unchecked and we didn't have enough tests. So there were a ton of people that got sick, both with very symptomatic cases, like even people who were hospitalized with severe cases who never got a test. There were people who, just stayed home the whole time and didn't get a test. So we had our I would say, our highest peak just based on the fatality numbers early on. So now, because there have been, so many cutbacks in terms of having testing available and whatnot, and so many people just having parties and saying we're, and getting rid of mask mandates and being like, and just acting as though the pandemic is over. This is where we are now, is that we're back to, we're back to it feeling like we're at the beginning of the pandemic, when it's just everywhere. Let's see. Angela Cable just said our state got our first confirmed reinfection this week. 6 months between. Oh, which state are you in? And I'm very jealous, Angela. It's like, now here's the thing. I go through. I tried to crunch about how many cases we had in Los Angeles yesterday, and I'm gonna guess we have an easy, because it listed off about how many active cases we had and how many fatalities, and I'm gonna guess we have anywhere from 300 to 500,000 active cases floating around LA right now, just based on extrapolating the number. But that is a hugely loose extrapolation. And last night there was a crazy loud Halloween party from the house next door, and all I keep thinking is, man, I hear one suspicious cough. I'm not going to be. I'm just throwing litter. You lightly used kitty litter over the fence. Emily Weidman just said we've got is it Weidman or Wiedemann? I apologize if I mispronounced it. We've got hospitals hitting capacity. Yeah, this is happening all around the country. I know that there are hospitals in, God, I've read it all over the place. Angela Cable said Wyoming is the state that hadn't had an infection in 6 months. Man, yeah, there are hospitals all over the country now that are starting to hit capacity now. And once you hit capacity, it's not you can't just make new hospital beds. It's not that's. You can't make it up. Like there's nowhere else to go with this. At some point, you run out of personnel. You run out of people to run the ventilators. You run out of everything you need to keep people in the state going. And I mean, that's part of why lockdowns are helpful, because even if let's say for a second, let's pretend for a second that the herd immunity tactic, that this getting everybody sick and just getting over it worked. Let's pretend it doesn't. It's a bad idea. It's horrible. It's going to make a lot of people die. Let's pretend it worked. It would still, like, and just everybody got sick all at once. What would happen is that so many people would get sick all at once that the hospitals would be so overrun that the people who might be able to be saved, a lot of people who might be able to be saved, will not be able to be saved because we will not have the resources for everyone. So a lot of people who need ventilators, who need basic medical care, not even ventilators, just oxygen, who might need just extremely basic care, we will not have the medical personnel. And because of course medical personnel, doctors and nurses are part of the general population, they will get sick too, as more and more people get sick, and they'll be taken out of the people available to help treat you, and this is going to make the problem, this is going to exacerbate the problem. So there are a lot of reasons why this tactic of herd immunity is bad. Now, the tactic of herd immunity, there's a theory that was going around that at one point there was a theory going around that we'd already hit herd immunity. We had 10% of the population immune. Fuck off. There was a theory that we'd already hit herd immunity, which was absurd. We don't hit herd immunity until there's at least 70% of the population immune, at least with this virus. It tends to be 70 to it's 90% is better, but still, basically, we're not going to hit herd immunity until we've been through what about 10% of the country appears to be immune at this point, or appears to have been sick at this point. We're not going to be immune until we've gone through this another 8 or 9 times. So this is we're not even close to immune. And when people say the herd immunity tactic, there are 2 things that I think they think is happening, because I don't think they understand how herd immunity works. One thing that I think they believe is happening is that everyone just needs to get it, and like it's just that we need a little bit of exposure to it, and our system will all of our systems as a whole will collectively kind of sort of understand it, and we'll have this collective energetic glow to the thing, and all of us will have a Mercury rising experience, and we'll all be there'll be kale and rainbows and puppies, and we'll all suddenly be more immune to it or something. Like, I think that we all just need to, like, there's some sort of something in the air where we all are just more immune to it after we are exposed to it. But then there is the slightly more accurate, but no less accurate, but no less good in terms of how it's what's the word I'm looking for? No less pragmatic to how it needs to be applied to life explanation, where people think that that people who are healthy can go out and and get their acquire their immunity by getting sick, and then we keep the vulnerable home. And the problem is that you cannot separate out society. The other thing is, we don't know who's vulnerable to this. Like, there are segments of society that like there's such a huge portion of society that is vulnerable to this, to people that have pre-existing conditions, people that are overweight, people that have asthma, even exercise-induced asthma. The segment of the population that we know have pre-existing conditions that leave them vulnerable to this is very high. And then there's just the fact that people that are, and I don't mean for death, I mean people that are marked for having complicated cases of this. And then there are people that are healthy that we don't know why, they just have really terrible long-term cases of this. So saying that we should just let people we should keep the people who might be vulnerable home, and then put people who are not vulnerable, out into society to get sick so that it can't be transmitted through them anymore. Number one, we don't know if those people are the ones who are not marked for serious cases. And number two, young, healthy people interact with older, vulnerable people. You can't, like, I live in a house of 10. We're I like to say we're a little microcosm of the universe. There's one person in here with a heart condition, one person in here with type 1 diabetes. There's me, who is a biological lemon. Like, we have people ages 27 through early 60s. Like, it is impossible to separate out society. People just come into contact with each other. So I want to know how people expect that you can just separate people out like that, and that will perfectly grant herd immunity. And when I say I want to know how, I mean, I know they're not going to be able to. Here's a good question from Angela. Are there any other coronaviruses with demonstrated herd immunity? So I want to be clear. Like, it's herd immunity is like on demonstrated herd immunity. No, I mean, because there hasn't been a concerted effort for there to be demonstrated herd immunity. Now, when we have because I mean, we only have complete and total. Like, we've only really acquired complete. When I say complete and total herd immunity, we have that to smallpox. We've eradicated that one, right? We cannot get that anymore. We've at one point achieved herd immunity because we are at the level that we needed to stop it from getting. We were there with measles, and then we dropped below the level on that. So with coronavirus, we have 4 of them that are endemic, and it's in general, and they've done some studies on this where they'll give somebody they'll basically people will they'll get permission to do this because these are obviously not deadly viruses. They will give somebody a coronavirus, one of the 4 non-deadly ones that just causes a common cold, and they'll obviously get symptoms. They'll get a little bit sick, and they'll be fine in a week. And then the following year, they'll test their antibodies, and they'll see how sick they get. And in a majority of cases, these people are not, these people don't get symptoms after a year. So it's not that we don't have. It's not that, how to phrase this. We don't have, quote, herd immunity to any particular coronavirus at this time, but we have seen evidence that we have some lasting immunity to it. But since this is such a new disease, I mean, we only really found out that this disease existed. It's been about a year. Like, sometime around, like, God, we're going to find out. It'll be about a year ago now, give or take, that this thing first popped into existence. So there is literally no way to know exactly how long immunity lasts until time has to carry on for a little bit longer for us to see what the immunity from this is. So no, we don't have. So to try to concise up my answer, no, we do not have herd immunity to any to any coronavirus at this point, but we do know that we can get a lasting immunity to some of them, and we'll see how long we can get from this one, from the vaccines. Oh, and I find out, I believe, that either the day or 2 days after the election, I'm going back to get some blood drawn. So I don't know if they tell me if I got antibodies when they go and check a blood, but I really want to find out if I got the vaccine or not. So anywho, are there any I was about to ask if there are any COVID questions. Let's see, because I feel like everything COVID dropped off the map this week, other than, hey, it's a week of awful news, because just everything was rough. It was like one of the pieces of news that came out was that every place that, and it was, it's always rough sharing these bits of news that are how to phrase, not quite provable, and the math is a little fuzzy. there was an article on how each place that Trump had gone and given a rally, right afterwards there was a giant spike in cases. And it's like, you can't quote prove that they were linked to the rally, but also what the fuck else happened? They were clearly super spreader events. So it's like it'd be nice if we hadn't had a president saying, I'm just going to wander around the country and spread disease. It's one of the more interesting things that's shaken out is that, remember when we had that study that came up, that quote study that was just a math algorithm basically saying that we had 250,000 people that had been infected because of Sturgis. That study turned out to be kind of bunk, but it seems that the reason we have such a spread of COVID now across the upper Midwest links back to Sturgis. So we're not sure what exactly caused it, we're not sure exactly what the numbers are from the spread. But man, Sturgis did it after all. Good question from Craig. Is there a link between vitamin D and survival legit, or is that Joe Rogan bullshit? So it's not Joe Rogan bullshit, but I also don't think it's legit. So early on in this, it was suggested that there was a link between people having low vitamin D levels and having worse outcomes. Now, I'm not sure at this point. I've seen different floating around on whether or not it's true, but it is not that vitamin D. It's not that vitamin D cures this, okay? It's not that if you have a bad case and you're at home, you'll go, I should just take a mega dose of vitamin D and I'll be fine. It's that if you're someone who is vitamin D deficient, and if you ever had a doctor tell you you're vitamin D deficient, if you've taken that is vitamin, it is linked to vitamin D deficiency is the thing that was found to be linked to it. So most of you, and this is contrary to rumors, there was basically a doctor a long time ago just decided vitamin D deficiency is the cause of all health ailments. I wrote up an article on this a while ago, and I was surprised to find this out because, there were rumors floating that everyone's vitamin D deficient. There was just one quack doctor who pretends that everyone is vitamin D deficient in order to sell more fucking products. It's one of those fucking things. But if you're somebody who doesn't consume a lot of vitamin D products or vitamin D enriched products, or doesn't get out in the sun at all, I'll admit it, because I don't go, I live in Los Angeles, so I really can't hit the sun a ton because that'll kill my skin. I don't take, I go out with my dog for all of 10 minutes a day of walking to get a little bit of vitamin D that way, but no more than 10 minutes of the walking with that. And I make sure I get some mushrooms are my source of vitamin D for the most part, surprisingly high in vitamin D anyways. But yeah, it's just if you're deficient in it. Let's go through a few more questions because we haven't sat down and had a quick little Q&A session like this. I feel like we need to do this more often. How dangerous is this current spike for schools? Holly asks. I would say one of the worst parts of this is that, and we discussed this when my friend Tara Haley was on the other day, it's dangerous. Now, I know that people are saying, and there have been articles about this, even in reputable places, there have been articles saying that students are not spreading it as much, that they seem to be a dead end, that they might catch it, but they're not going to spread it. The problem with saying that is that right now schools are at lower capacity. It's kind of like whenever we've had a lockdown and things haven't spread as much, people are like, why do we need the lockdowns? There's nothing spreading. Well, the reason that it's not spreading as much in schools is because they're at lower capacity, or things are remote, or all of these types of things are happening that's making the caseload much lower than you would expect in schools. So here's the thing: if your child, if there are the options to either go to school or go to school in the classroom or be remote, and your school is taking all the proper precautions. If you are someone who's low risk, if and your child is really struggling at home, and you've gone in and looked at the classroom and you've gone, okay, I feel comfortable with this. I think that, and I know that my kid can manage to keep their mask on all day, and you see your child not doing well at home with remote learning, consider putting them back in school. I'm not gonna I'm not looking at parents who are putting their kids in school and going, you're parenting, it is bad. I'm seeing my friends really struggling with this right now, and I don't know what I would do in their shoes. I don't. That looks like a really hard job, and I'm horrified for you all. But yeah, right now during this highest spike of this, I'm surprised that schools aren't planning. I remember earlier in the year, there was discussion that some schools were planning to close between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I don't know if that's still the case at all. This is what I get for not being a parent. I don't know. I don't know what their plans are. But it's right now really is. It's probably pretty dangerous for schools. Please check. So in terms of this current spike, check what the rates are for your current area. I mean, there's a map from, one of those places one of the websites is checking current rates and current spikes. And it looks like all of America, just everywhere in the US, is having as bad of a spike as it could be, which is terrifying. Let's see. Helena commented, read an article recently that the people who are showing little or no symptoms but are infected are silent spreaders of also going around masks. Yeah, that is the case. That's why we should all wear masks, is because we don't know when we are we just don't have a clue when we're first sick. So it can either be a few days of not having symptoms, and then we start showing symptoms and we've got and we're spreading it during those days, or we just don't get any symptoms at all, and we've got a week in which we're just spreading it out into the universe. So this is why we should have a policy of universal mask wearing. It's not to protect us, it's to protect everyone around us. So I'm hoping, this is one thing that I'm really hoping for with the Biden administration. If we get a Biden administration, I'm all on board with a national mask mandate. Just fingers crossed, something to make this all a little better. And that the freedom people are going to come out and yell about it. I want them to come out where, look, if the freedom people are going to come out and scream about masks, I want them to do it wearing a Borat bikini. Just get that little, that's how I feel. You can only, I feel that you are only really voicing your desire for freedoms of what you're going to wear, and to bodily autonomy and rights, if you're doing it wearing such a small amount of the tiniest amount of clothing that can possibly cover your balls, your taint, and your nipples. I just go all in. But man, I'm worried. These next couple of days are worrisome. I am a little bit terrified. Oh, and by the way, of course, my dear little tiny dog, sweet dear little tiny dog, who's gonna want to walk soon. Oh, who is my baby? I want my buddy dog. Anyways, here's my cute little puppy dog. I am going to hop off here soon to go walk him. It's just before I do that. Hold on. No, couldn't not do that, obviously. But anyways, yeah. The next, I know some of you guys who are watching from outside the U.S. and I don't know what this looks like from outside the U.S., but it's just as horrifying from inside the US. I wonder what this looks like or there was a video that was interviewing foreign correspondents and asking what this was like reporting it. And they're like, this is like reporting a failed state. This is like reporting a government that's falling apart. They're like, I've reported on this, things that felt like this from governments that were about to collapse. It's like, oh, that's not at all terrifying. So, who knows where we're going to be a week from now. I hope that we're all at a safe place. So quickly, I'm going to before I hang up on you guys. I'm going to do a quick plug. Please, guys, if you're able to, if you want to hang out next a week from today, I will be doing my monthly Patreon only live stream, and it's also this month is special because it's going to be the election wrap up where we're all gonna hang out with some mimosas and share our feelings, whatever they may be. So it's after this week long this week long extravaganza, and then the night of many exhausted internet personalities on election night. I'm going to take a few days and hide, and then Saturday I will come out of my hidey hole for some patrons. Also, of course, in the description is a link to my Patreon, and if you want to make a one-time donation, there's a link to my PayPal. And if you just want to send me candy, which why wouldn't you send me candy? Or a Diet Coke? Why wouldn't you send me candy or a Diet Coke? There's a link to my Amazon wish list. You can send me candy, or you can send me a KitchenAid mixer, whichever. But I figure candy is more a thing. Anyways, thank you guys. That's Goldie Monster just asked, I want to join that. How do I do it? It's the link is it's patreon.com/the SciBabe, or it's patreon.com/SciBabe, and it's paypal.me/the SciBabe. Anyways, the links are in the description for the video. And like I said, please, it's a really good time hanging out with all of the patrons. Also, there is a link to the Discord channel that where I go and hang out in Patreon chat all the time, and that is pinned to the top of the Facebook page. So I'm gonna pull myself away from here. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. Remember, tomorrow, as long as democracy hasn't dragged him away, it will likely be Andrew Seidel for my guest. If not, I have a fantastic backup for tomorrow. Anyways, I love you guys. Side Dog loves you guys too, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.